here just to talk about something that's been on my heart. And yesterday, I'll be honest, yesterday I was up crying, talking to the Lord. And something about me is that I rarely cry. Most of the time, I'm driven to tears by like anger or righteous indignation, where I'm just like, it's not fair. And really, the thing that triggered me was hearing that SNAP benefits and WIC benefits were going to be cut in a matter of days for people. And it just broke my heart. And I think, yes, any person would be affected by this news, any person with a sense of compassion for people would feel like, okay, this is something that I should be concerned about. But I'll tell you my vantage point and why this hit me differently. So I haven't really shared this here on my channel, but when my husband and I had our baby, we were on maternity leave, and my maternity leave looked like me actually leaving work a few weeks before, because this was my first baby. I didn't know when the baby was gonna come, so I was like, okay, let me be at home, because I had this fear of like giving birth at work, which was so far from the truth. Anyway, my baby came weeks later, but we went into my maternity leave, meaning I stopped working and my husband continued to work, and my husband was the one who was the breadwinner solely. We went from being a 2-income household to being a 1-income household. And my husband works at a university, and so he was like, our university, we both work there now. Now I'm back working, but I'm taking backwards in our journey. At the time, my husband was working and it was just his income. And instead of it holding just him, which it used to be before we got married, it was him, me, and our newborn baby. And at first, it was like, okay, this is okay, because we had our newborn baby and our baby was like exclusively breastfed. So we were good. Like, okay, this is fine. But I remember towards the beginning of our maternity leave, the Lord just was so kind and spoke to me and was like, hey, you're about to enter, and I quote, a hand-to-mouth season. And I was like, what does that even mean? And the Lord said, you're going to enter into a hand-to-mouth season where you're going to have just enough. Don't worry, the season won't last forever. It's going to be a short amount of time. But in this season, I'm trying to teach you contentment, and I'm trying to teach you some resourcefulness. I will be with you. I will provide. And I remember being like, what a hand-to-mouth season? That sounds awful. And the Lord also told me, you're going to have exactly what you need, and you're not going to rely on government assistance. And now, that's the part that I didn't understand. From what I knew, if you are a woman who was a stay-at-home wife and your family was on one income, you're going to be able to be qualified for certain things. Something like WIC, for example, women and children, you could get like supplement for things like formula, food for the baby, stuff like that. So for me and my husband, we're pretty like thrifty, so I wasn't concerned about us. I knew that we could make it, but our baby, I was like, a hand-to-mouth season. And I didn't really tell anyone that instruction of the Lord. I just kind of like kept it in my heart as the pregnancy was progressing and when our baby was born. I had this underlying like panic that was just like building. Yes, we had savings, but we had paid for our baby's birth up front. And so a lot of our savings went towards prepaying for birth so that we wouldn't have birth debt at the end. You can see my birth story on my channel here if you're interested. But so we didn't really have much debt other than like we had two credit card bills that were less than $2,000 total, right? And that was just kind of like there in the background. But we didn't have our two incomes anymore. So I was like, Lord, if we can't get government benefits, where's this going to come from? The Lord also gave me some strategy that seemed so random at the time. The Lord was like, I'm giving you stores like Aldi and Trader Joe's specifically. And I'm not saying this for anybody else. This was my own instruction for that season. That Aldi and Trader Joe's, the reason being was that the Lord was saying, feed yourself with whole foods. And I was like, okay, feed yourself with Whole Foods. Trader Joe's and Aldi are going to be your two best friends. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to train your appetite for quality whole foods. And then along with that, my specific instructions as a breastfeeding mom, the Lord was saying, drink coconut water. What was the other one? Drink coconut water daily. Get out for walks daily. And then also, there was one other thing that I had trouble with. Oatmeal. Eat oatmeal. And I remember being like, I had this trouble with sometimes the Lord's instructions felt like suggestions to me, many times because they seemed random. And so this was at the beginning of the journey. The Lord was like front loading our hand to mouth season with these instructions. And I remember being like, if we have one income, Aldi is the least of my worries. You know, I'm now worried about other things. But every month, the Lord just kept supplying our needs. This is so crazy. We made it on one income all the way through my son's first birthday. Literally, we were in a hand to mouth season, one income for 12 months. And the week of my son's birthday, I find out right after that I got a new job. And that season abruptly comes to a close. And during that season, no, we didn't have government assistance. I would have loved it. This is how I have to tell on myself a little bit. I so did not understand or truthfully trust the Lord's instructions in their entirety that I literally drove. I told my husband what the Lord told me. And so I was like, but does he really mean I can't get government assistance? Because we need, at that point, my son, maybe like 5-6 months, he started having half breast milk, half formula. So we were starting to buy more formula. And I was like, we need formula. That formula was costing like $40 per canister. And I was just like, my baby can eat. It's not gonna work. So I stubbornly drove down to the Social Security office and I was like, I gotta get an appointment. And I was there in the waiting room and, you know, I'm sitting there in this waiting room with my baby. I'm sitting there with all these other mothers. I sit in the waiting room and I bump into a fellow Nigerian woman. And she was like, yeah, you know, my husband, he's really trying, he's working, but it's not enough. And, you know, we're over here. We got government assistance for our other baby. You know, you can probably get yours for your baby. This is our second baby. And so now with all these mouths to feed, we definitely need the assistance. So I was talking to her like, okay, yeah, like I should qualify. I get in there. And here's the weird part. I really hate lying. So I can't bring myself to lie. So I don't lie in the interview. I tell them how much we make. We're on one income, 3 mouths to feed. And I love my husband, and I'm so proud of him for holding down the fort. And I'm like, yeah, my husband works and he does this. And I wasn't about to lie and say there was no man in the house. There's definitely a man and a covering in our house. So even as I was answering the questions, the Holy Spirit was like, what did I tell you? Why are you sitting there? I already knew they were gonna say no. She's like, at the end of that whole sitting in the waiting room, you know, answering all those questions, she's like, so you don't qualify. And I was just like, y'all are saying I don't qualify, but you're not the one receiving overdraft notices. You're not the one receiving insufficient funds emails. Like, there is no money. You know, that's what I was telling myself. But if I go back and roll the tape, every month without fail, there was money. for groceries. There was money for essentials. Now, were we buying anything other than essentials? No. There was money. In my mind, like a certain amount of money left in the bank after your stuff is what constituted to me feeling safe, feeling like we have it in the bank. But literally, we wanted for nothing. And so it wasn't just like, oh, money was just falling out of the sky. Literally, as soon as our baby was about to arrive, the generosity of the people in our village, in our community started. Starting from our baby shower. Our baby shower was a really interesting time where we had taken a break because we were kind of like on sabbatical as a family, where I was taking my rest very seriously. We kind of pulled back from some church activities. We had just decided, okay, we're still connected, plugged into our communities, but all of our like we need to dial it down so that we can get ready for this baby to arrive. So we had kind of stopped a lot of things that we were doing. And so our baby shower, we remember we had sent out invitations, but not so many people came. And I remember being like, oh man, like that's interesting. Like I was expecting that maybe more people would come. For whatever reason, our attendance was like our core group of people, which was so beautiful. Our core group of people that said, we promise to be here for you and your baby and your family. And they gave us diapers. Most of the stuff on our Amazon wish list was on there. Like literally, I think it was like 75% fulfillment. And now that I'm on the other side of it, right? It blows my mind because people were so generous to us to the point where I want to say our son was about 6 to 9 months when we had to buy our first thing of like diapers. We had so many diapers that had been given to us from the baby shower. Yeah, so there were so many things, and people were so generous. They were like, oh, here's a gift card. And side note, let me time out for a second. Now that I'm on the other side of the hand to mouth season, I have to say many things will change about the way that I give to people because of how clutch it came for me. So for example, I know you love your Babies R Us. I know that you love your Kohl's, you love your whatever, but there is no better gift to people when they're in need than the freedom to choose. So the people who gave us those gift cards that were like Visa gift cards or somewhere like a Walmart or a Target that you can use, like, yeah, you can choose, oh, are you gonna buy wipes? Are you gonna buy groceries? Are you gonna buy diapers? Like, give people the ability to choose on any given time what they need for their family. And there would be times where it was like, oh, maybe the clothes for the baby, maybe he outgrew them because he was a big baby, so he didn't even wear newborn clothes for long. So rather than picking cutesy clothes, like give a gift receipt so that people can return or exchange it for a different size that is higher up, so the baby can wear the clothes longer. Like, it's so embarrassing, but our baby is like 13 months now, and the other day I was putting pants on him. I'm like, are these 9-month-old pants? Like, he's still wearing pants from when he was 9 months old. So like clothes last a long time. Once they get to the older ages, the clothes can stretch. I now don't buy onesies with feet because they can last longer. If you don't buy the baby socks, yes, but onesies without feet, they can grow and stretch and they can wear them for a little bit longer time. Just like little things like that. Buy separates, like shirts that you can pull on, pants that you can pull up. At some point, I stopped buying onesies and started wearing separates for my baby. But back to the generosity of our community. Our community gave us so many clothes. There was a time my mother-in-law sent like a package of just miscellaneous clothes. And at the time, our baby was like pretty young. Maybe it was like somewhere between 3 to 6 months. And the clothes she was sending were like 12, 18 months. Stuff that he's wearing now that I'm like, some people had the foresight to think about what we would need. And so I thought that was very helpful. There were so many moments that broke my pride, but I think it was very necessary. Um, there were times where, as a 36-year-old, I had to tell my parents that, like, I might need help with groceries today. It happened a couple of times, but I remember just being like, why? You know, we work very hard. We're not spending money at the wazoo. We're trying very hard to be thrifty, but we had to get help. So, you know, my brother and sister-in-law sometimes would just come and drop off pouches for the baby, baby food formula, wipes, diapers, like clothes. My siblings would just help, and it was one of those things where when I didn't have to say, like, please help me, but they would foresee the need that I had and they helped me. They spared my dignity. They spared me having to beg. And I keep saying that I won't forget the way that people treated us when we were in our hand-to-mouth season. They were preempting our needs and they were meeting them. There are so many times where people, we had like church family that would be like, hey, we want to see you for lunch. And there was a time we went out with these friends, and I sometimes when you don't have the money, you can convince yourself that you're not hungry. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really hungry. And I was like trying to order off the appetizer thing, and they were like, you know, I went to the bathroom, I already paid for the bill. And I'm taking notes because now, like, no, that's what I want to do for people. Or they would be like, hey, order anything, it's on us. And they weren't necessarily rich people, they were just rich givers. And I think back to the very beginning, I said I was crying, speaking to the Lord last night because I remember the hardship. I remember the shame, the embarrassment. I remember the shuffling for change, the trying to like make it work, right? And I don't believe that it is a position that people should be in indefinitely. I understand, you know, if it's a season, if it's a blip, you need to get back on your feet. But there are people for whom they cannot seem to get a leg up. They cannot seem to like find their footing to where they're able to sustain their lives. And I'm not here to have a conversation about government handouts and welfare queens. If we look at the demographics of people who are receiving welfare, it's not who you think it is. And many times, Black and brown people are accused of taking advantage of the system, but majority of the people in there, it's not down and out poor folks just trying to engineer the system. We're about to see some really, really hard times fall upon regular Americans. And I'm at first I was really heartbroken, and I still am, but I'm now shifting my perspective to something that is more productive. So going back to my own hand-to-mouth season and the strategy that the Lord gave me, I'll go back to why the Lord kept saying, go to Aldi, go to Aldi. And I remember, first of all, I love Aldi, so I was not mad that the Lord was recommending my favorite store as part of my strategy. But I would go to Aldi, and the Lord would also instruct me, when you find a deal, don't stockpile the deal. It's like manna, was the revelation he was giving me. I'm giving you that deal for the day, and I'm giving it to you to feed. Take what you need and only what you need. It's like, okay. So I would go to Aldi, and I would see like a family-sized pack of drumsticks chicken for like $5. Some days I would come and it was like 50% off, and I was like, I don't want to even twist my brain to find out why it's 50% off. Whatever, I would somehow find it, and it would be like the days that the Lord knew I needed it. I would always have the habit of like withdrawing cash, so I would have cash in hand for our groceries, no matter what came out of our bill, no matter what surprise like expense we had. At least I always had groceries for cash for groceries. because feeding our family was my priority. When I was staying at home, my husband was bringing in the funds. And we would budget it, and I would hold the cash in hand. I could buy the babies food. We switched to a less expensive formula. Can I tell you the miracle of the Lord? God is so funny. We started finding, we would check the mail. And I used to pray at a point, like, Lord, send us checks in the mail. We were using like the Similac formula that was like the blue one, and it was like this much, cost like $40. And I was like, this formula is so expensive. Randomly, manufacturer coupons to Similac started showing up in the mail, like $20 off, just started showing up in the mail. And it happened like 2 or 3 times, and each coupon had like 3 coupons in it. And I would save them and hold on to them and use them at the store to buy formula for our baby. Similar to that, we had been at lunch with one of our pastors, and they were telling us about their hand-to-mouth kind of season that they had. And they gave us this beautiful testimony of how like they needed help, and the Lord made it so that somebody was able to give them this deal where I think they used to work in leadership at Burger King. No, a chicken place. Maybe it was Popeyes or something, or KFC. It was KFC, and they used to be able to go to KFC and get whatever they needed because there was this connection with this person. So KFC was their lunch, it was their dinner, it was whatever they needed. And it was while they were pregnant, but they had chicken, they had protein every single day, they had the sides, all the things. And we were telling them, yes, for us, we kept getting coupons in the mail of Burger King and Subway. Like, definitely not the most healthy meals, but literally these coupons were like, get 2 Subway sandwiches for $7. And, you know, just stuff that was affordable. And I was just like, the Lord just kept favoring us. And it was never like, oh, gorge yourself with food. It was like, no, get enough for you and your husband so that you have enough to buy groceries. You have enough to feed your baby. You have enough to sustain yourself. And so literally, we would go to Aldi and, you know, coleslaw mix, which is cabbage, would be on sale. Chicken would be on sale. Pancake mix would be on sale. Apples would be on sale. Whatever was on sale at Aldi, that's what we would eat for the week. And if we wanted like a special treat, we would buy something at Trader Joe's, which was still pretty affordable and had pretty good whole clean ingredients. So we were probably gonna shop the perimeter of the store and not the inside where it had like special snacks and stuff. But I say that to say we had to get pretty inventive. And the Lord kept pressing me like, hey, I'm going to call you to host more in your apartment. Now, we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. And I kept being like, first of all, my husband and I host all the time. You know, in our single life, I used to host people. I used to have a small group that met at my, when I lived with my roommate back in New York. I loved having people over. But once we had our apartment, I was like, it seems too small. Like, I love to host, but can I do it? And the Lord's like, no, I need you to start hosting. Not only will you host and have meals for people. Now, imagine this. We're in our hand-to-mouth season. We can barely feed ourselves, and the Lord is asking us to feed other people? Huh? But every time he was asking us to feed other people, he was also providing deals at the store. I would go to the store and it'd be like, chicken is on, like this whole pack of chicken is on sale. And so I say that because the Lord did not revoke his instructions to me. As far as some of the habits from our hand-to-mouth season are going to remain. But now the call to host. Imagine so many people in your community, like our community did not know to the extent to which we were like scraping by on one income. Because by the grace of God, we didn't look like what we were going through. But we were making it by the chin on our hair, the skin of our teeth. And we knew it was temporary because the Lord was trying to teach us something, and the Lord was transitioning us. But Imagine there are people in your neighborhood, people in your community, you have no idea that they might be on their last $5, right? So I'm saying that to say, my instructions from the Lord are that I'm to host, and I'm saying this so you guys can hold me accountable. I'm meant to host people at our apartment, wherever we live. I'm meant to host, provide a meal for people, provide a means of some kind of social gathering, and then provide an opportunity to pray. I, in my network of people, have so many mothers with young children. There's no reason why we can't swap clothes. There's no reason why we can't swap resources. Hey, your child isn't playing with that toy anymore. You're not using that baby bathtub. Oh, you don't need this tricycle. Like, we can trade them. Goodwill, I'm sorry to say, you're sending your stuff to Goodwill. Goodwill is upcharging it and selling it to people. They're not really as much giving it to people in need. There are people in your community, you can do something. And so I am listening to the instruction of the Lord, a little delayed, but I'm going to host like he's been asking me to, and I'm going to be his hands and feet. If you see, I have a video about blessing bags. I was doing blessing bags, but there was a point where I was like, Lord, I gotta feed my family. So I put a pause on doing it in a robust way, but we're coming back. It doesn't take much to put a few blessing bags together. And now more than ever, people are going to need it. I'm going to revisit the content and be a little bit more intentional about the blessing bags. But um, I will just take inspiration from my mother and father, my parents, from times when we were in middle school. They hosted an afternoon lunch at the house for like literally whoever would come. They would just cook. And I have a video on, there's a podcast episode I did with my mom, and she was talking about how the Lord just provided on a weekly basis. One thing people don't know about my parents is that um, for most of the time, growing up, my parents were on one income, with my dad being an engineer. And then there was a time when my dad wasn't working and my mom was. And so God provided. He provided. So I've seen with my own eyes how the Lord is faithful. And in this hand to mouth season, it showed me that money is something that comes in and out of your life, but abundance is something that the Lord sustains himself. And he uses different ways to bring blessings. And the Bible says blessings that make rich with no sorrow added unto it. So yeah, I literally had to wipe my tears and put on my war paint, because we're not wrestling with flesh and blood. We can believe whatever we want to believe ideology wise, but the practical things we're talking about now is the fact that people will wake up 2 weeks from now and not be able to feed their family. That's the truth. And those of us who can, we can spare an extra meal that we can share with our community. The modern version of this, Sofa Rush, has been showing videos about how she's been hosting. I think she does it after church on Sundays as well. My parents host on Sundays, which is why I chose Saturdays, because I want to go to my parents' one, and then I also want to host my own. We're gonna start having to do it. We're gonna have to start doing it, and I'm excited. The Lord had to shake me out of my woe is me, like woe is our country. No, no. We were putting our hope and our trust in political structures that were not meant to hold the weight. Yeah, so I'm also gonna try to find food pantries to volunteer. I used to volunteer so much before I had a baby, before I got married. And I will admit, I started getting so like stuck on our own problems that I forgot to look and assess the state of the world. I think what's returning to the body of Christ is this feeling of being our brother and sister's keeper, this sense of responsibility for your fellow countrymen, for your neighbor, being concerned about them. And I'm not saying this to be like, oh, I'm gonna brag about the good deeds. I'm saying this as a charge to all of us. We all have our own corner, right? whether it be that you know how to bake fresh bread. Maybe you know how to make a good cake. Maybe you know how to coupon, like I don't know, like maybe you just know how to find a good deal. Whatever it is that is your superpower, we're gonna need you. I don't want to have any more conversations about political ideology. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care because it's not going to do us any good in this time. I want to know, what are you bringing? What sword are you bringing to the fight? What resource are you bringing to the table? What are we going to do about this? If you look back in the day, um, when people were in need, it was the church that stepped up. This is just like a precursor of what kind of wickedness and darkness the enemy is trying to bring in the world. So we need to start implementing systems and things that we do as a community. When my baby's birthday party, we had a play date, and the play date was when I was like, let me see if I can soft launch this thing. I'm calling them Koinonia Saturdays. I was like, let me see if I can soft launch having a play date and feeding my friends. And it was like, I just had pizza and it was like, fine. But I was like, okay, next time I do this, this is how many juice boxes I'm gonna need. This is how much I'm gonna need to buy. First of all, I need to level up my cooking skills. I will just be honest about that, because we're about to start hosting in a very robust way. And I'm gonna have a corner where it's like, hey, anyone have clothes that they want to donate or trade? This is the box. Like, no questions asked. Come, bring them here. If we can't use them, I will donate them somewhere. You know, and so I want to be more practical and hands-on because we're gonna need everybody. We're gonna need everybody to put their hands to the plow. Anyway, I gotta go to work, but thanks for watching. The Lord is doing something in our midst. It's marvelous in our eyes, even though we don't understand it. Seek the Lord for His specific instructions for you and your family. Not one person has the whole picture. Even when we listen to people prophesying about what is to come, everyone knows in part, everyone prophesies in part. So trust the Lord for the peace that is for you and your community. Okay, bye, y'all.